It's time for Veterans Issues, the show that brings you information about veterans, military, and their family. Now here's your host, Ken Rollins.
Welcome to Veterans Issues. Ken Rollins here. Thank you, Gerhard, for that intro. And we are brought to you by the Red, White, and Blue. And I got some red, white, and blue here today. A friend of mine, World War II veteran. He's the star of a documentary called My Anniston. His name is Edward Wood. Stay where you are, get you a pen. Be right back. Welcome back to Veterans Issues. Ken Rollins here. Today's guest is a very dear friend for a lot of years, and I don't say that lightly. His name is Edward Wood. He's got a documentary out. You can Google this. It's called My Anniston, and we'll be talking a lot about that. But we'll talk about a lot of other things. So stay where you are and get you a pen. Talk to Edward Wood now. Edward, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you, Ken. Glad to be here.
Good. Glad to be anywhere, aren't we?
Appreciate you inviting me.
Oh, man, I tell you what, we tried it last week, and somebody decided to snow us out, and we couldn't do it. But we had a good experience riding around that snow out there watching fools.
Yeah, we did.
Edward, we, of course, I'll just, for the record, say, you know, we worked for about 20-plus years together at Anniston Army Depot, and we worked, WWII, we worked. And we've known each other as friends after that. And you've been on the show before, but you got a documentary out called My Anniston. And I'm going to ask the control room, just so the audience out there get a little idea of what we're talking about, to bring up. We're going to take some excerpts from it today, and we'll talk about what those are. And it won't be showing much of it because, man, we'd be here for hours watching that whole documentary. So I'm just going to ask people to pull it up on YouTube as My Anniston, and they'll be able to see it. So if we can get the control room to bring that up, we'll bring up a portion. And we're coming up with that, and
My name is Edward Wood. I was born March the 15th of 1927 in Clay County, Alabama.
Documentary. Now, when did you do that documentary?
3 years ago.
3 years. And I know you've been some places with it, hadn't you?
Yes,
I can't catch you.
I've shown it at countless churches in Anniston, both black and white churches. I've been to Mobile, I've been to Montgomery, Dothan, I've been to Troy, Alabama twice, to Birmingham. They're calling for it all over the state.
Yeah. Anywhere out of state?
I get calls from all over.
Yeah.
And it's in just about every movie festival in the country. Tyler Perry has a copy of it, and we're hoping that he'll do something with it.
Wow. You couldn't have better than to have Medea doing it. That's my buddy. Love me some Medea. Tyler Perry's a very, very talented. If you could ever get that in there. But the folks that watching this, they're going to come away with a lot of different things. This is not a civil rights video, but it is. It's not a black on white, white on black video, but it is. But it's what it is to me is the reality of the time. And so as we start in this version, this is Black History Month, and I'll say yours is more about American history because that's the way America was, and the South was part of America, believe it or not. Yeah. And that's the way times were back then. Did I do that accurate?
Well, my whole thing about it is I'm concerned about our present younger generation, how they're not taking advantage of opportunities that I did not have when I came along. And instead of turning to one another, they're often turning against one another and are turning on one another. And I'm really concerned about that. I grew up on a farm, and I guess I planted seed, and it's amazing what one seed will produce. And that's what I see my calling now, as planting seed. I may not see all the harvest, but somebody will. And if I can just say one word to start some young person to thinking to take advantage of the opportunities that exist now. It'll be worth all of the effort in the world.
That seed, there was a bumper sticker I saw lots of years ago, and then I finally found one and bought it. And it said, anyone can count the seeds in an apple, but only God can count the apples in a seed.
That's exactly
so
right.
As you plant that one seed, that tree will make multiple apples, multiple seeds. If you can plant that seed of what you just said, and in that, Edward, you was talking about what you didn't have, and you still, I could go on and on about what you did with your life and your children and your grandchildren, and they have opportunities. You want them to take advantage of the opportunity you didn't have. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Exactly. I grew up in a community. I grew up on a farm in a community where there was not even a school for black, not even a school building for black children. There was no buses. I walked 4 miles to a school where we had one teacher with up to 60 students. When you went through the 6th grade, there was nowhere else to go. The nearest high school was about 28 to 30 miles. There was no bus. I went to high school after I came to Anniston, was married, and had 3 children. Some of us went through the 6th grade 2 or 3 times because there was nowhere else to go.
Wow. Well, the one thing I didn't say at the beginning of the show is for those that's watching is you're a World War II veteran. You was in the United States
correct.
Navy, and you're from Clay County, and that's not derogatory. A lot of people still live in Clay County and still watch us out here, but you came from it was, as I remember, you're sharecropper. Your folks are sharecroppers, right?
That's correct.
You said in the movie, I remember watching it several times, a lot of how'd you say it? It was sharecropping.
A lot of cropping, but very little sharing.
I can't imagine. I mean, I grew up in hard times myself, but I can't imagine what all the cotton I picked, I did get paid for it, even though it was in pennies. But I can't imagine having to share that with somebody, that work that I did. Right. Can we pull up another? I don't know where we are on the taking the excerpts out. I'm just going to rely on Kizzy up there in the control room to bring me up an excerpt to give us. I want to show just a little teaser about my Anniston, the documentary, to get people to pull it up, and it's such a good teaching tool. So we're going to go up and talk about this one and see what we got. Surprise me, Kizzy.
Well, this is my dad, John Wood, and 2 brothers, Harmon and Norman. One of them died when he was 2 years old. The other one died just a few years ago. Well, my daddy was actually born a slave. He was born February the 17th in 1861, and his master was his daddy. He owned my grandmother on my daddy's side, and he had 2 children by her, and he was from Hurd County, Georgia, by way of Texas. He moved into Randolph County, Alabama, and when he died, my dad and his sister inherited his land.
That was a little bit about the family and your brothers and sisters, and we were talking. We got less than a minute left in this segment, but we were talking beforehand. I worked with Monroe Jr. Patterson. Wood, and you said Monroe Sr. is still farming?
He's 94 years old. He still plants a field of vegetables in Clay County, and anybody who wants them, there's no charges. You just go by and help yourself.
We got to go to a break. You got more to talk about with Edward Wood, my Anniston. Stay where you are. Come back. Talk more about it. Thanks for staying with us. Welcome back. And we're talking with Edward Wood, World War II veteran and a movie star. Just one of the little things he's done along his way. Edward, you were talking about he was in the United States Navy. I believe we got some of the documentary talks about that. I don't know which part we got, but so we get the control room to bring that up because I want people to have an idea of Edward Wood, from the oldest generation, not the oldest, the greatest generation. That's what I said. You are the oldest, but for the greatest generation. Some more about Edward and the documentary.
I went in the military in 1946, I believe it was, and
I had 3 brothers already in the military, World War II. There were 2 of us brothers in the Navy. One was in the Army and one was in the Marine Corps. I was on an aircraft carrier, 2 aircraft carriers, as a matter of fact, the USS Natoma Bay and the USS Mission Bay. I went to Guam, to Manila, Subic Bay, and all down in the Philippines. At one time, I didn't think there was any more land. For 21 days, I didn't see anything except sky and water.
You're talking in the documentary about the Navy where you sail in and all this kind of thing, but that's you and I go after you came home in the Navy, and I don't remember if the documentary covers all this, but I do know for a fact, when you came home from the Navy in World War II, you were not received the same as white people when they came home from the Navy. You remember the instance that happened when you came back? You told me about this years ago, but
When I came home on my first furlough, I met one of the local farmers that I knew, and he knew me. I was in Lineville. Everybody went to town on Saturday afternoon. I was kind of proud of my naval uniform, and he looked at me and he said, "Where'd you steal that uniform, boy?" And I said, "I didn't steal it. Uncle Sam put it on me." He said, "Ain't no niggers in the Navy. You better pull that uniform off before some of these white folks pull it off of you." I said, "Well, you're white." But he decided he didn't want to take it off of me. But I came home on my first furlough, standing up on a bus, looking at vacant seats with a United States Naval uniform on, and couldn't sit down because there was a line in the bus and black people could not sit in front of the white line. There was a few seats in the extreme back of the bus, and if they were all full, even though there were vacant seats in front, you couldn't sit there.
I remember some of those days. I remember many years ago, a decade or more, you told me about one of the drugstores here. I won't say the name of it. You went in, you could buy the medicine right here, but hamburgers and milkshakes were served right here, and your son Pee Wee was with you, and Pee Wee wanted a hamburger.
Right.
Am I telling this right? You could
That's
not get
correct.
you remember that story you told?
Yes, I remember quite well.
Yeah.
I went to the drugstore to get a prescription filled. There was a lunch counter about halfway down between the front door and the back, and they were eating hamburgers. My son was about 5 years old, and he loved hamburgers. So he asked me for a hamburger, and I knew I couldn't buy one because they didn't serve black people. So he just got hysterical, started crying, and I just picked him up in my arms and carried him on out the door. And by the time I got to the door, somebody hollered, said, "Do you want something, boy?" And I said, "No." And I made a vow that day that my son was not going to suffer what I had suffered. So I said, if this opportunity ever presents itself, I'm going to do what I can to change this. And I did. I was one of the first blacks that sat at the lunch counter in Anniston. I was one of the first blacks who rode the front seat of a bus in Anniston. I'm not bragging, but I'm kind of proud. And I've not told my son to this day why he could not have a hamburger. But I didn't get my prescription filled that day.
Now I've met, and I know Pee Wee, very successful. So is your grandson. As a matter of fact, that Chinook that was flying in Hurricane Sandy by the Statue of Liberty happened to be your grandson piloting that. I know he's seen you beam up when, and we're going to get him on his show one of these days, but it was, if we can bring up some more, I want to get to the Freedom Riders thing before we get out of time here today, because Kizzy, if you will, bring us up another segment, excerpt from the DVD documentary. Going out to the barbershop now.
This is one of the historical sites in Anniston, Alabama. This is Leonard's Barber Shop. A fellow named Joe Leonard used to own this. He's dead now. He and his brother and a minister, Reverend Green, and the 2 Leonard brothers. And when I first came to Anniston, this is where I got my first haircut. Somebody told me, say, go to Leonard's Barber Shop. So I walked in and I said, "Who is Joe Leonard here?" Nobody said a word. All 3 of the barbers looked at me, and finally when Joe's chair became vacant, he said, "Come on, mister, I'll cut your hair." Never said another word the whole time. Cut my hair, and haircut wasn't but 50 cents. So I gave him $1 and told him to keep the change, and he followed me all the way out to the street, brushing the hair off of him. He said, "Come back, I'm old Joe Leonard, come back anytime." so I got my hair cut here.
Money talks, don't it, ever? Yeah. Let's go on, kids. If you get that other one queued up, I want to go on to the Freedom Riders, because Edward, the one thing I've never, all the many years I've known you, I want to date our ages if I don't tell you. You have never come off as an angry, bitter person. You've always been someone who, even in the working industry we had, you wanted to solve problems. You wanted to get ahead of things and fix it. And I'll say this, I got a brother that worked with you out at M&H Valve. You was a union man out there, and he told me years and years before I ever met you, well, a few years before I ever met you, that if you ever meet a guy named Edward Wood, he used something about your name, fair, that you was fair, black and white. It wasn't and that was back in the early 60s, 70s, whatever year back in the day, and you represented him, and for that I thank you, and you represented a lot of others. So here we go. We're going to go back up to something else. The kids has got a surprise for us. And here we go. Okay, we're going to Burning the Bus.
It was just a regular Sunday, 1961, Mother's Day, and we knew that there was a civil rights bus coming through Anniston because it was in the news, in the papers. Everybody was aware. It was no secret. They had a problem. When the bus got to Anniston, there was a group of people waiting on the bus. I was aware that it was a Klan behind it because they was just resisting giving black people equal rights.
Forsyth grocery store sat right along there. There was no road there at the time. This was the only road that came through, and this is where the bus started burning, and it burned down right by which is where you see that sign.
There we go. That's that horrible event that a lot of us remember, the Forsyth Grocery. A lot of people don't even know the Forsyth Grocery was there. You couldn't tell by looking there now. But I've shopped in there many times, and my brother came up on that scene the same day, same time you did, or right after. Horrible event, horrible history for us. But I want to say this. That, of course, now let me back up a little bit because we're running low on time. You actually was part of getting Dr. King in here to escorting him, making sure things are right for Martin Luther King.
Yes, Dr. King spoke in this area several times. My responsibility was to escort him to and from the airport.
I got to cut you.
Sure.
I got to cut you. Just stay right there. I'm going to give up part of my last of my program. We're going to go back, pick up right there because we run out of time of this segment. We're going to go to a break, come back. Normally it's news that you can use, but it's going to be more about Edward Wood. Stay right there. I'll be right back. Welcome back to Veterans Issues. Instead of having news that you can use, we're going to talk more about Edward Wood. It's worth it. I very seldom can get him up here. So let's continue on. Edward, we were talking about you made arrangements with Dr. King, but you we're talking about, I had Dr. Boyd on here, and we were talking about building the memorial out there. There's something that needs to be done. The Freedom Riders Memorial out there on 202. You're part of that?
Well, I'm participating in that, and I think it would be a great thing for many reasons. Anniston is sitting on a gold mine. Mm-hmm. If they complete that Freedom Riders Park, there will be visitors from all over this country and out of this country. We'll have a need for a bed and breakfast out there. It's a gold mine. We need to get on and develop that park. Yesterday
should have had it done, and I agree with you. And economically, it would be great. But the other thing it does, it will wash the face of this community. You know, people have a bad outlook about Anniston, Alabama. I remember when I was in the service, I wouldn't tell anybody I knew anything about Anniston. I was always from Birmingham. I never was from Anniston. And because we was embarrassed about it. So this would help in that image of the area. And so like I told Dr. Boyd, if I can do anything to help, I certainly will. And you go to speaking engagements around the community, you said, and Well, you got one coming up. You told me the other day before you got snowed out.
Yes, 17th Street Baptist Church will be showing the documentary at 3 o'clock at 17th Street Baptist Church, and I invite everybody who can possibly come to see it.
What day?
I'm sorry.
What day?
This Sunday.
The Sunday.
The 9th. This Sunday coming up.
The 9th, okay.
3 o'clock.
Yeah, remember that, the 17th Street at 3 p.m.?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. And we was talking about, we talked a lot about you don't live in the past, but if I said it right, I think you live more in the future because you want the young folks to understand the opportunities out there. Don't just leave them. If you're a gambler, you're leaving your money on the table. If you leave an education laying there, you don't take advantage of it. And people like you, your grandchildren, your children have taken advantage of what's available and done well, and I'm proud to know you. And here's a picture of you killing a deer this past weekend, Anniston Depot, a 7-pointer. And you want to thank all the people at Depot. I'm doing this because I know we're running out of time. I know you want to thank all the people out there at the Depot, the commander and all of it made this possible for you.
I do. I am very, very happy. That was one of the greatest experiences. I will go to my grave with those pleasant memories. I met the commander, I had dinner at his table, I met his family, Colonel Blanda, and I had a personal guide named Idaho that could not have been nicer to me. He just could not do enough, and he, being a deer hunter himself, put me on a spot that was hot with deer.
You know one thing, when anyone is there, and it showed in the documentary, you go into your carport, it looks like a jungle. You killed everything there is, from coyotes to, and you said that's the biggest deer you ever killed.
The largest one I've ever killed, and that was number 39 since I've been deer hunting.
How many turkey you killed?
I've killed 22 turkeys.
How many?
22.
I got some at Winn-Dixie one time. Everett, I appreciate you being on the show, buddy. I'm sorry we didn't have more time. We could do this for hours, but I want people out there to Google it, My Anniston, and watch the whole part of the show. Folks, we appreciate you tuning in this week. I want to give a salute out to my friend Everett Woods, his service to this country and his service to America as we go forward. So we'll see you next week right here on Veterans Issues. Tell your friends about it, both of them, and we'll see you next week.